Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight, Monday evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you for joining us. Here's our top story. With 850 people here waiting for an organ transplant, we'll talk to a teenager given a second chance at life.
The fact that they said yes and helped 4 others as well, it's just incredible. And I'm here because of their decision.
A doctor who's written about Max's transplant joins us to mark Organ Donation Awareness Week. Also tonight, good news from Goodison. Everton are on the verge of a takeover following years of uncertainty. We are live in Liverpool, where Labour are holding their first conference in power for 15 years. Aircraft acrobatics. The Wirral pilot who leads the world-famous Red Arrows takes us on tour to Canada.
And it was an awful start to the day, wasn't it? A lot of rain. We still do have the warning in force to cater for that rain through this evening. Join me at the end of the programme. I'll give you all the details.
Seven years ago, we first featured the story of Max Johnson from Cheshire, my nephew. Max was 9 and he needed a heart transplant after a virus destroyed his heart. Well, Max is one of almost 11,000 people in the North West who've had their lives saved since the organ donation register was introduced 30 years ago. But tonight, around 850 people here are on the waiting list for an organ transplant, hoping for a second chance at life. Lots of people over the years have kindly asked me how Max is, how he's doing. Well, to mark the start of Organ Donation Awareness Week this week, I've been to see him. Max is 16 now. He was 8 when he became ill, half a lifetime ago.
I can obviously remember quite a lot of before that, like when I actually was well before. And I can remember the holiday where I was falling ill. Just simply walking was like running a marathon. It's starting to become more of a blur because of how long ago it was now.
Max now loves fishing and is studying for GCSEs, catching up on the months of school he's missed. Having been told he needed a transplant in 2017, Max and his parents waited and waited. For the 8 months he lay in a hospital bed, doctors have since told them he could have died at any time.
It almost feels like I can only remember the key moments, like having a NG tube fitted, which is like a tube that goes through your nose and into your stomach. And that was a horrible moment. I hated it, so obviously I remember that.
But he also remembers kindness and care.
I've got lots of fond memories of the nurses, play specialists, clown doctors. You couldn't write on paper how perfect they were.
Max's life was saved by strangers hundreds of miles away. Kira, the same age as Max, was fatally injured in a car crash near her home in Devon. But in the depths of unimaginable grief, with his wife also seriously injured and prompted by Kira's sisters, her dad, Joe, offered to donate her organs to save others.
There's a mixture of feelings. There's a thankfulness for Joe and, you know, their whole family for saying yes to donating. But there's also a part of me that feels so sorry for what happened to Kira.
And do you think about Kira?
Yeah, I do. How she was as a person, she was lovely. And to tragically have been in that car crash, it's devastating. But the fact that they said yes and helped 4 others as well, it's just incredible. And I'm here because of their decision.
Max's life-saving operation was filmed by a documentary crew following the work of the unit where Max was treated. And he became the face of a newspaper campaign to change the law around organ donation. It's not common for donor families and the recipients to meet. There are strict rules about contact, but the publicity led Kira's family to get in touch.
It was amazing, you know. I got to meet the people who've saved my life, really. It was quite surreal when Joe and the whole family, they got to hear the heart. And obviously that was quite moving.
And in 2020, the rules around organ donation changed. If you don't opt out, it's assumed that you consent to being a donor. Only a tiny percentage of us will be suitable, and bereaved families will always have the final say. The new law was named after Max and Kira.
it's great to see that there's actually been quite a lot of good come out of it, you know. There's plenty of lives being saved because of it, and the awareness is being spread, and it's just so meaningful that I've managed to be a part of that. So it's just amazing.
It was lovely to chat to Max, and quite rightly all the family are incredibly proud of him. Max and Ciara's story is told in a new book. It's called The Story of a Heart. It's by the best-selling author Dr. Rachel Clark, and through it she explores the history of transplantation and explains the process by which organ donation is managed. I spoke to her a little earlier and she told me that communication is key at every stage.
On one level, you have literally got hundreds of people in the NHS behind the scenes, all communicating with each other so that multiple hospitals, teams, surgeons, paramedics, nurses, organ coordinators are all talking to each other, because if anything goes wrong with the logistics, the whole thing can fall apart, and then you've lost this precious organ. It's not viable anymore. And then crucially is the very human, tender communication that healthcare workers are trained in, so that when they talk to families facing sometimes the most terrible moments of their lives, they broach this topic of donation of organs, and do so in such a way that it helps a family realise that from almost the depths of their despair can come this miraculous thing, which is gifting organs and saving lives of adults, lives of children. It's the most incredible thing.
And it all begins, doesn't it, with families talking to each other, so that if the worst happens, you know what your loved one would want.
That is absolutely right. That the single most important thing I would say to anybody watching this is, please, please, please take a moment to tell your loved ones what your wishes are. And it is this incredible living legacy that lives beyond the tragedy of losing someone you love.
And is that fair to say that, or would it be fair to say that more often than not, families who have donated at the worst possible time in the months and years ahead derive some comfort from that?
Absolutely. What's incredible when you talk to people who are involved in transplantation, such as the intensive care doctors who have these conversations, they say, without question, they have never ever had a family come to them afterwards and say that they regret the decision. It gives them something precious and life affirming, so that although they've lost someone they loved so dearly, they know that another family hasn't had to go through that terrible pain as well, and it brings them endless comfort.
What would you say to people who are sceptical about all of this?
I can honestly say, with all my sincerity as a doctor, that every single person I have spoken to involved in the donation of Ciara's organs, the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons, they all cared first and foremost about Ciara and her family, and they treated her with absolute respect and dignity. First and foremost, NHS healthcare workers are human beings. We respect and cherish our patients and their families, and organ donation is no different at all.
And people can always say no.
People can always say no. Nobody is ever pressured. No one is ever persuaded. It comes down to the family's wishes first and foremost, and they're always respected.
Dr. Rachel Clark, thank you for talking to us.
Thanks very much.
And her book, The Story of a Heart, I would say this is excellent. I've read it. Thank you to everyone who took part in that little sequence talking about the start of Organ Donation Awareness Week. Now, we'll hear more about Everton's imminent takeover in a moment, and Kaya's got the weather for us as well. But first, a public inquiry began today to look at whether intelligence failures contributed to the murder of an imam in Rochdale. 71-year-old Jalal Uddin was bludgeoned to death in 2016. A man was later convicted of his murder, but another suspect fled the country 3 days later. A court was told that both were sympathisers of the group calling itself Islamic State. An 82-year-old former night superintendent at Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool has been jailed for 25 years for historical sexual offences against 4 children in the 1960s and 70s. Graham Goodchild was found guilty of 17 counts of sexual assault in parks and in victims' homes. A mum from Lancaster has lost her 2-year-old daughter to the same rare genetic condition which claimed the life of her son 3 years ago. Dr. Emily Cooper's daughter Isabel carried the same gene mutation as older brother Alexander. She died on Thursday. The family didn't find out that Alexander had the PPA2 mutation until nearly 2 years after his death, or indeed that Isabel also had it. Justin Timberlake and Alanis Morissette have been announced as the first headline acts for next year's Lytham Festival. Simple Minds and Texas will also perform, and other headliners will be announced over the next few weeks. And a cheeky cat burglar has been caught stealing the feline feel-good drug, in inverted commas, catnip in Liverpool. Clarence was his name, sneaked into a house in Toxteth and stole 10 bags of the herb, which apparently creates a sense of euphoria. The homeowner, who packs catnip as part of her job, caught Clarence making off with the haul. Right, let's stay in Liverpool, where Clarence was up to tricks, and Labour's party conference heard from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves today, as you may have seen on the national news. The party's first conference in power, of course, for 15 years. It got underway yesterday, runs until Wednesday. Our political editor, Annabelle Tiffin, is there. A couple of months now into Labour's time in government then, Annabelle. Is the honeymoon period over for them?
Well, Roger, I think it depends on who you ask. The official party line here is everything is great, everything is fine, nothing to see here. But there is no doubt that Labour arrived in Liverpool under a cloud as thick and stubborn as the one that's been hanging over the Mersey all day today. Those headlines about the Prime Minister and other ministers accepting freebies while pensioners were having their winter fuel allowance taken off them. And then there were all those headlines about doom and gloom around the economy. So it was up to the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, today to inject a note of optimism into proceedings today with her speech about growth and a promise not to go back to austerity. But what do people here make of it?
It's only early days because we've only just assumed power a few months ago. So I think you should give us time to walk before we begin to run.
See, I think they've given people a voice. You know, they've gone there, they said they've got to do things. The country was broken. And I, for one, am proud. I'm proud.
What we saw today was a lot of optimism from the Chancellor, and I'm looking forward to the budget.
Honeymoon is over.
Yeah, I fear so, yeah.
Well, earlier I spoke to Tina McKenzie from the Federation of Small Businesses, and I asked her whether businesses in the North West had liked what they heard.
It's the small businesses, and in the Northwest people will know this, that really help people that need flexible work, that are furthest away from the labour market. We need those small businesses to continue hiring. Otherwise we'll end up with even more people economically inactive. So yes, they did inherit, apparently, a huge problem, but actually there's work to be done, there's things that they can do. And today we're hearing a lot of what they want to do, and that's a real relief to business, that they actually are listening to us and they're getting on with the job.
Well, conference is packing up for today. There's just a few journalists left and a few people drifting off to the various fringe and social events that go on at conference. But just before he left, I did manage to catch up with one of our newest MPs, Conor Rand, and I asked him about the party mood.
What I want to do is focus on the things that we're doing that are really positive to change our country, of which we're hearing a lot about at this conference, the importance of growing our economy, of getting our NHS back on its feet, ensuring that we're investing in the right places and making the fundamental decisions now to fix the foundations so we can build a brighter future. And that's what I'm hearing from the podium. That's what I'm hearing from the delegates and other people who are here.
Is it what you hear from your constituents, though? Are any of them, you know, getting a bit fed up with a Labour government that's taking money off pensioners but taking freebies at the same time?
Well, when I speak to constituents in Altrincham and Sale West, they understand that there are no quick fixes, there's no silver bullet. They know that the challenges our country faces are enormous, and the inheritance that we've been left by the Conservative incentives in any imaginable area of public policy is making things difficult. It's making things really tough, and that's why, you know, we've had to take some of the decisions we've taken whilst protecting the poorest pensioners and whilst, you know, announcing lots of other measures like action on climate crisis, like our 10-year plan for the NHS, to finally fix the foundations of our country and deliver real change.
Conor Rand speaking to me just a little bit earlier. Well, tomorrow it is the turn of the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to address conference, and I think everybody here will be hoping that he continues that message of optimism. It does feel a little bit like the positivity police have taken over.
Annabelle, thank you very much. Annabelle live at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Let's move on to sport. Richard is here in the studio, but focus very much on the city of Liverpool, but the blue half of the city tonight. The Friedkin Group, seemingly, after on, off, on again, close to taking over Everton.
Yes, another twist and turn, Roger. Yeah, after pulling out of a deal to buy Everton in July, the Friedkin Group have had an about turn, are very close to becoming the club's new owners. The American Group, which has a turnover of several £1 billion, also owns AS Roma in Italy and the French side Caen. BBC Radio Merseyside's Julia Bold has been following developments every step of the way and joins us now. Julia, just how close are we for all of this to go through?
Yeah, it's all happened very quickly, this, and it is very close as well. The talks between the Friedkin Group and Farhad Moshiri really gathered speed over the weekend. So as it stands this evening, the deal is done. The finances are in place as well for the purchase of Everton. Also, the due diligence was actually done in the summer, in June, when the Friedkin Group had the exclusivity period then. So that's been taken care of as well. All that is left to do now is for the Premier League to approve this, and everything I'm hearing here in Merseyside suggests that this will happen fairly swiftly too as well. If you think to what happened at Manchester United with Jim Ratcliffe, that was a matter of weeks. So I'm expecting this at Everton to be a similar situation.
Sounds as though it's very close, Julia. What's the reaction been of Everton fans tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty positive, and you have to remember the last few years for Everton fans, it has been a lot of hardship. There's been a lot of failed takeovers. The 777 takeover, for example, that went on from this time last year right up to the start of June this year. That never happened. We know that John Textor has been in talks as well. He's the co-owner of Crystal Palace, but he never had exclusivity, and that's because he already owns a Premier League club, and the rules state you can't own two. Of course, we know about the PSR issues, financial problems, points deductions, relegation battles. There's been an interim board in place for well over a year as well at Everton. So tonight, you have to say this feels fairly positive. Dan Friedkin, the head of the Friedkin Group, he owns Roma. A similar situation there. They had financial problems. He came in. He also brought the Europa Conference League to Roma. It was the first European trophy as well, which Everton would love to get their hands on. Something like that right now. Recently, though, they have sacked their manager and their CEO has left in the last 24 hours. But ahead of that, he's had a fairly good turnaround at Roma. So tonight, it's feeling like maybe for once Everton fans can have a bit of a smile on their faces.
Let's hope so, Julia. Thank you very much indeed. Let's hope it. Rovers are fourth in the Championship, a place below Burnley, who beat Portsmouth 2-1. In League One, Blackpool made it 2 league wins out of 2 under new boss Steve Bruce in a 2-1 victory at Charlton. Bolton Wanderers got back to winning ways in style. Dion Charles with a hat-trick in a 5-2 hammering of Reading. And in League Two, Barrow topped the table after easing past Newport 2-0. Crewe are into the top 6 as well after a 3-0 victory over Harrogate. Fleetwood host Morecambe this evening. There were mixed fortunes for our WSL side in the opening games of the new season. Manchester City 2-2 at Arsenal, Liverpool 1-1 at home to Leicester, had to settle for a point, but Manchester United got off to a flying start at home to West Ham, the Reds winning 3-0 at Old Trafford. Everton lost 4-0 at Brighton. Well done to Saints and in Rugby Union as well to Sale Sharks as men, who opened their Premiership campaign with a victory thanks to the boot of England fly half George Ford, who kicked 4 penalties to edge Harlequins 12-11 at the Salford Community Stadium. And finally, in Speedway, all the very best of luck to Bellevue Aces, who face Leicester Lions tonight, Roger, in the first leg of the grand final. Let's hope they can do it.
That'd be fantastic. Rich, thank you very much. Very comprehensive for Monday night.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
Plenty there.
Thank you. After the speed of the Speedway bikes, we're going to carry on with something fairly brisk. The Red Arrows display team, famous around the world, of course, their death-defying aerial acrobatics, have amazed crowds for decades. And the man in charge, squadron leader Graham Muscat, is from Wirral. Graham and his crew are just back from a 5-week tour of Canada, including a colourful flypast at Niagara Falls. And he's been chatting to us.
I make sure that all the rules and regulations are adhered to, and on the display day I make sure that the team is safe, and making sure that the display is safe, and making sure that the crowd, more importantly the crowd, are safe. In addition to that, on displays I actually give the narration, the commentary, so if anyone's been to the Red Arrows show, they'll hear my voice across the PA system. And split! We were invited by the Royal Canadian Air Force for their 100th anniversary, which is a great milestone for any Air Force. You know, the Royal Air Force itself celebrated its centenary in 2018, so we know how much of a big deal it is, and it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure to be here to celebrate alongside the Royal Canadian Air Force. We're here in Montreal, got one more fly past in St John's before we move up to Goose Bay, which is on the far northeastern coast of Canada. We've been here just coming up to about 5 weeks now. We've got about a week left before we get home, but the reception's been fantastic. Everyone's been friendly. Those images are simply down to teamwork. You know, I put the aircraft in the right piece of sky, and most of the hard work is taken by Circus 10, Corporal Phil Dye, and then backseat. He's the one that's taking the images and the videos. He's telling me where to go forward, go back, go up, go down, to try and get those iconic shots. I don't get to see much of what's underneath me, you know, for instance Niagara Falls, because I'm concentrating on making sure I don't staying away from the actual formation or staying out of the way from buildings, so it's a real team effort. People ask what does it take to become, you know, either an RAF pilot or in the RAF. You know, I didn't join the Air Force a pilot. I was in the Air Force for 9 years before I got a pilot crossover. It was a lot of hard work and determination, but self-belief, I think, is one of the biggest things. Right. We displayed in Blackpool and Southport. We were based out of Liverpool for Southport Air Show, so it was great to be back in the homeland, as I like to call it. And I get back to the northwest all the time. All my family, all my parents, my brother and my sister. My brother still lives in Birkenhead. My mum and dad still live on the Wirral, so it's great to get back and see them, and I try and get back as much as I can. And it's certainly, when you go there, it certainly feels like you're home.
Pictures are just fantastic, aren't they? That was squadron leader Graham Muscat, who is the squadron leader at the moment of the Red Arrows display team. Wasn't that shot amazing as they flew over the top of Niagara Falls? Right, let's have a look at the weather, shall we? I think, Kay, it's safe to say that that little last bit of lingering summer from last week has gone now, hasn't it?
It's gone. Yeah, and if anything, it's going to get colder.
Oh, gosh.
So we've not started off well. We will get some sunshine, but it will feel a lot colder.
And just to be clear, you've had a few graphics problems of late, so you've got a wire.
I've got pockets of clickers,
right,
but because I trust nothing, I've now got this. It's my new friend, so I'll keep hold.
Hopefully you're not echoing, because I can hear you very loudly.
Well, let's pray we get through the forecast, Roger. Today, I mean, this morning, wasn't it a poor start to the day? The rain was relentless. Carl, thanks for sending this picture in. A nice picture, despite the rain. And Rivy Rog sent that photo in. Look at the gloomy skies. It was low pressure in charge, so it was a poor start. Thankfully, we've not had it quite as bad as down south. We still do have a warning in force, so I'll come to that in a minute. But thank you both for sending those photos in. If you would like to send in your pictures, then you can either follow me on socials or become a weather watcher and let me know what it's like in your part of the world. So while it's not been the best start to the week, tomorrow an improving story. We will see some spells of sunshine and we will see the odd shower. As we head through the week though, midweek, very unsettled. By the end of the week, it's going to turn a lot colder temporarily. So what's been going on? Well, it's low pressure that's brought all the rain. Now that's going to continue to clear away to the east. Here's the next pressure system that's coming in late through Wednesday. So for Thursday morning at this stage, it looks again quite poor. You can see where the warning area is. That's valid until midnight tonight. Most of the rain will have cleared by then. It leaves a legacy of clouds, so it will be a mild night. Temperature-wise, double figures, 10 to 12 degrees. The odd isolated shower. The winds remain moderate from the west. So tomorrow morning, fair amount of cloud. Misty, murky, particularly for the hills, the odd shower. Now we're going to see the clouds thin and break, sunny spells coming through. That will trigger a few showers. Not everyone will see them. Certainly less rain than today, but bear in mind all that water on the roads. Temperatures, not great, 13 to 15 degrees, but actually the wind's light. In the sunshine, it shouldn't feel too bad. So then we skip ahead. Now, at the minute, timing's a bit uncertain, but it looks like Wednesday evening, overnight into Thursday, another area of low pressure, which for us means Thursday morning, pretty poor conditions, particularly for the commute. We are expecting a fair amount of rain on that. And that clears through. Once it does, we start to pull down the northerly air. So we start to see those temperatures dropping off. It looks like, though, it should be fine for Friday. Good spells of sunshine, feeling cooler. Temperatures pick up a little bit towards the end of the week, and I'll keep you up to date with that next low pressure system. I'm going to place this gently on the floor.
Don't throw it, otherwise you might break it.
Like I would normally do at home.
A couple of people have said about organ donation. Julie talked about her husband, Mike, 8 years since he had a kidney transplant. Paul says 34 years since he had a cornea. So grateful to his donor and their families. Lots of people getting in touch about that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now, listen, before we go, I was thinking, why don't you share that picture that we were having a look at before? Because it's a good one.
Because it's awful.
No,
it's not. It's great. Someone's gone to a lot of trouble.
Go on.
No, no one wants to watch it.
They do want to see it, Roger. We want to see
have a
you.
look. Apparently, it is available to buy.
I'll buy it. I will pay any amount.
I'll pay more. In Bernardo's in Southport for £5. Someone's gone to a lot of trouble. It's a lot better than I could do.
It's incredible.
A big forehead, haven't I?
Oh, very large.
Have a lovely evening on that bombshell. Thank you for watching.